Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. Once again, welcome back to another live stream on Dawah Wise. Those of you who are very first on this channel, we are a platform where we bring in to empower you to establish the veracity, the truthfulness of Islam by bringing in experts and providing you with resources, materials, tools, expertise, knowledge, all that is required for you to understand, comprehend, and then use it to establish the reality of the truthfulness of the divine origin of Islam to the global mass, to the people all around you. And those of you who are non-Muslims, you will find within our channel materials and discussions between experts, live discussions like this today, inshallah as well, God willing, where you can engage with the Muslims and see how Muslims bring a discussion on an intellectual level to provide you where we stand in terms of our belief and establishing that belief. So we're not here just to tell you blindly that you believe in Islam is true and that's it, but we will give you our reasons and evidence for it. So as usual, we have with us our co-host, Ustad Hashim. Assalamu alaikum, Ustad Hashim. How are you doing?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, alhamdulillah, I'm doing very well, and I hope you're well as well, and our esteemed guest, Dr. Shoaib as well. Alhamdulillah, good to have another live stream.
Barakallah fi, jazakallah khairan. And also we have our prominent guest here today. It's a pleasure and an honor to actually have Dr. Shoaib Ahmed Malik to be with us. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shoaib.
Wa alaikum salam, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to Dawah. I look forward to having a wonderful conversation with you both, inshallah.
Likewise. So as an introduction, what we want to first highlight is this. We provide, resources for Muslims to be empowered, as well as I mentioned, non-Muslims to understand where we are in our position. So there are different topics that we bring. Sometimes maybe topics which are related to the current problems that you see Muslims are facing, or we as humans generally facing around the world. Today we are bringing a topic that affects almost all of us, whether you're a believer or a non-believer, whether you are a Muslim or a non-Muslim. This affects your faith, your stance, your position on this subject, and all around you and how you actually view the world with this particular topic on mind. So this is none other than the topic of evolution. Evolution, you can simply understand an explanation from science to explain the biodiversity, how we are in this world, in this diverse ways of, in our appearance, in our creation, or in our, existence. Did it have a beginning where we evolved, or you actually developed from a smaller, less, when I say smaller, less complicated species or a form, and then we gradually became more and more complex. And of course, there are different nuances associated with that. So this is evolution we were talking about. Now, it seems across the world that we have scientists saying that this well-established, well-substantiated theory is the best explanation for biodiversity, with humans being no exception at all. So, however, admittedly, mostly this is what, in our view, is it's a restrictive, Eurocentric view, and it has become, without justification, a cornerstone of the atheistic paradigm, unfortunately. But however, more of this and on this later, inshallah. So on the other hand, Muslims, we read in our Islamic textual tradition, in our faith, we have a belief that Adam alayhi salam, or Adam, the first human being, is someone who occupies a very central part in our belief system. Okay, it is understood that Adam and Eve were created by our creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without any parents, and they were the first of humankind. And interestingly, opinions on at this very intersection of Islam and evolution within the Muslim world, as you will see in our discussion, are very mixed. And depending on who or when or how you ask and what particular context you ask, you will see and you will get different responses from the Muslim community. Some Muslims see evolution as something that is totally, not reconcilable with science. You can't reconcile evolution at all. They're like totally opposite on the spectrum. And others don't consider to be problematic at all. So can we have a reconciliation between Islam and evolution is what we're going to talk about in this live stream. This is a two-part program, so I need to explain to our audience from the very beginning. This is a two-part show. In our first part, we'll be dealing with one particular aspect of the program, and then in the second part, we will develop a bit further. So Dr. Shoaib will take us on a journey through his book on Islam and evolution that, inshallah, God willing, we'll be familiarizing ourselves with in the course of this program. And he will discuss about the evolutionary biology and the Islamic tradition to demonstrate that there is a viable faith-based stance within the Sunni tradition. Okay, this is what we're going to focus on in these two streams. Of course, in the future, Dr. Shoaib, if he wants to, I mean, he can. Well, he's actually working on other faith, you can say, aspects of it. How do we explain other than a non-Sunni tradition? So, consequently, using evolution to justify leaving Islam has no intellectual foundation, and this is what you will be getting at from this program in this two-part. That once you understand our stance, from the Sunni tradition, there is no way you can say intellectually, that's it, we are justified to leave our faith just because evolution is what you think is the reality that explains the biodiversity. So today's session, inshallah, God willing, will provide an overview of the concerns and issues, and part two, we will delve into some of the scientific and theological aspects, if that is okay, Dr. Shoaib.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine, inshallah. Yeah.
So it is a pleasure having you here to explain to us this very important and very timely subject matter. If I may, first of all, ask you in the tradition of our Dawah-wise live stream, just to explain yourself to those who don't know you. I'm sure you don't need any introduction, but there might be people who might be confusing you with the sportsman personality, the cricketer, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So once again, thank you to Dawah-wise for inviting me to the show. Honestly, I really appreciate it. I know that this is a big topic with a lot of concerns, and Muslims have had a very hard time with grappling with this question. So it is for that very reason why I invested at least 5 years in total in writing a book on this subject. But just to introduce myself, so yes, my name is Shoaib Malik, but my full name is Shoaib Ahmed Malik, and I tried to keep that name everywhere publicity-wise, just to kind of give me some differentiation to the cricketer. Because whenever people search for me, they automatically ask me, where's your Sanya, his wife that he married, right? So so even in my own house, I've had confusion where some delivery men were expecting the cricketer and a signature from me. So not to, I mean, of course I had to disappoint them that I am not the official cricketer. So my full name is Shoaib Ahmed Malik. So I'm of Pakistani origin. My mom and dad are from Pakistan, but my dad was born and raised in Kuwait, and I was born and raised in Kuwait. So I've been in the Middle East for my whole life. When I was 18, I was really good at chemistry and mathematics. I then moved to the UK for 7 years. I did my undergraduate degree in chemical engineering at the University of Bath. I came top of the university, through which I got a fully funded scholarship from the University of Nottingham to do my PhD. And so once I completed that in 2015, it was at the end of my PhD I realized that chemical engineering is not for me. I don't want to do it. I want to go into philosophy and theology. Interestingly enough, I think this might be of interest because this is the appropriate channel to talk about it. My supervisor, my PhD supervisor, was an atheist, and he's the one who actually got me into Islam. And because I was a cultural Muslim, I actually couldn't. I wasn't a practicing Muslim until I started my PhD. And one of the prompts for my coming to Islam, so to speak, was because my atheist professor kept asking me questions about Islam, and I would sit there like a buffoon, not knowing anything. So it would force me to kind of go and do some research until I finally got to know, whoa, hang on, there's a lot to think about here, about Islam, what have you. So yeah, throughout my PhD, through the help of the ISOC, the Islamic Society in Nottingham, which played a massive role in my development as a Muslim, I realized that I really, really didn't want to be a chemical engineer. I just didn't want to sit behind a computer, crunch numbers, or go out in the oil field. It wasn't just for me. I wasn't having it. And so since 2015, I've been on a personal journey, both academically, spiritually, and personally, about how to improve myself in learning my religion. And then more than that, using that religion as well as my scientific background to kind of address maybe some contemporary issues that are really hurting Muslims today. So naturally, the areas that I fell in love with are Aqidah, theology, creed, and so I studied under some shuyukh, right? Avicenna Khan is one of them. Then I studied under Sheikh Ali Al-Iraqi at the Meme Institute. Currently, I'm trying to finish my Alimi at al-Balagh Academy. And during this time, I've also done a master's in philosophy of science and religion. And I've started publishing papers in this area. So the three areas that I mostly focus on, and I've been focusing on since then, are Islam and science, atheism, and Islamic theology. So whenever you see a paper under my name, it'll usually come under one of those three categories. So the rationale or the motivation for getting into evolution, so from chemical engineering to biology. So I just want to make this clear from the beginning. I hate biology. I've always hated biology. I dropped it before even doing GCSE because I just hated biology that much. So when the GCSE options came up, I'm like, chuck this in the bin. Lo and behold, in my first year at university, 5 years after GCSEs, I had to do biology because biology apparently is important for chemical engineers. So I just couldn't escape it. So it just kept coming back to me. But yeah, I'm not personally a keen biologist. I'm mostly interested in chemistry and physics. But the reason why I decided to focus on Islam and evolution is primarily because I felt that out of all the conversations in the relationship between science and Islam, this one was the most difficult one to handle. And it was one that was plaguing the Muslim world. And I felt that we have to have some kind of a constructive discussion here. And so that's why I wanted to really kind of invest the past 5 years to really deeply looking at this conversation from all angles: the philosophical angle, the theological angle, the scriptural angle, and the scientific angle. So I've been, at the feet of scholars, scientists, theologians, philosophers, just trying to understand the different levels of conversations that are happening in this domain. Through that experience, I was able to write a book, which you can. So this is the front cover: Islam and Evolution, Al-Ghazali and the Modern Evolutionary Paradigm. It's available for free. So a friend of mine paid for this book to be open access, which means it's legal for you to share it as a PDF across the world. So anyone can download the book for free. So even if you are living in third world countries, or if you don't have the financial access, this book is there. It's readily available as a PDF. And so my friend thought that this book was a necessity, primarily because it was dealing with an important question with a Sunni framework. And I want to make sure that is very clear that I am a Sunni Muslim, right? So I come from a Sunni worldview. I'm not disqualifying other people if they carry other traditions. That is their prerogative to do so. But I am a Sunni Muslim. I carry that torch. This is my worldview, my commitment set. And using Sunni Islam as a framework, I wanted to evaluate the conversation. Now, within Sunni Islam, there are various schools, 3 schools in particular, right, that have been labeled as Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah or Sunni Orthodoxy. These schools are Ash'arism, Maturidism, and the Athari or the Salafi school, right? Now, they have their respective beefs with one another, but it's the same as pretty much your fiqh schools, your Shafi'i, Hanbali, whatever, Maliki. All of them have their respective disagreements, but they are co-valid. Similarly, in Sunni Islam, we have 3 schools, and these 3 is what represents Sunni Islam. So, and I personally commit myself to the Ash'ari madhab. This is my personal inclination. I'm not disqualifying the other schools. This is just the personal worldview that I adopt. And so, just to kind of make the book very focused, I didn't want to take the whole Ash'ari tradition because there are many scholars that come under the rubric of Ash'ari theology. I focused on a scholar that particularly impacted my personal life, and that is none other than Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. So al-Ghazali is a very, very famous figure for many different things. His rhetorical efforts, his theological insights, as well as his spiritual works. And when I started getting into Imam Ghazali, I'm like, wow, this guy is on another level. And so I thought one of the ways in which we can do 2 things at the same go is by using Imam Ghazali as a voice of theology today to address a contemporary concern, to show how theology is still relevant, as well as can be empowering for Muslims today. And so that has led me to writing this book. And I'm really glad that I've been given the opportunity to sit at platforms like these, through which I can share my ideas, and with people around the world who can download the PDF for free. So in a nutshell, that's my story.
Mashallah, that's good. Really, I mean, the transition from being a chemical, what do you say, engineer from that perspective, career to coming in, writing a book about Islam and evolution. It's quite a change, isn't it? Alhamdulillah. So, mashallah, I think I'll get straight into the topic of evolution. So it seems like because of there's a lack of what do you say, responses or answers to the questions on evolution, many of the Muslim brothers and sisters, they automatically completely ignore or reject evolution and get straight into creationism. Do you see a tension between creationism and evolution from the Islamic paradigm?
Right. So when I started off looking at this, which is about 7 years ago, I thought of the discussion exactly in these terms. You are either a Muslim and therefore you must reject evolution, or you are an evolutionist and therefore you must reject Islam. It's this binary, right? And I think it needs to be made very, very clear that this binary was given to us through two audiences. One is the atheist audience, who have made evolution their marching stick against all religions across the world, and people have bought it. People have bought that narrative, as well as people from the Christian tradition. So I'm talking about the creationists, the ID crowd, who have kind of made it their agenda that we are on a mission to take down evolution altogether. And so because of this crossing over from Christian polemics and from the atheistic narrative, we kind of have sunken ourselves into sticking to this binary, which is false. It's a false choice, because there might be other options in between that we are not maybe thinking about. And so when I started looking at Islam and evolution, I had this binary at the back of my mind. But then when I started going deeper and deeper and deeper, I realized there's a lot of middle positions that we don't have any appreciation of at the moment. And so what ended up happening is there's actually a lot more than just creationism versus evolutionism. And that is because of several things. But most importantly, the idea here is that when we are looking at the Quran and Hadith, we have to understand which lens we are speaking from, right? Which lens are we speaking from? Because in Islam, there are multiple disciplines through which you arrive at robust conclusions. There is something of an opinion based on tafsir. There's something based on the opinion as a fiqh opinion, and there's something based on, of an opinion based in theology. If you want to make something a part of theology, which means that you are making something doctrine, you need clear, evidential, scriptural material. Okay, something that is unambiguous, that is clear-cut from the Quran and Sunnah. And when you take that as your benchmark, which is what I did in my book, I took it from a theological angle, not a fiqh angle, not a tafsiri angle, but a theological angle. So the threshold is very, very high in that level. It's very, very high. And so when I took it from that angle, I noticed that there are a lot more options than what we are being presented. And so hopefully we'll unpack those either in this session or the next one. But yeah, it's not a clear cut that if you reject Islam, then that means you're an evolutionist, nor if you reject evolution, does that mean you accept Islam. This binary is something we need to get ourselves out of.
Jazakallah khairan. Just to let our audiences know, inshallah, towards the end of our discussion with Dr. Shoaib, we will take question and answers from our audience. So just bear with us. Let us now set the frame to understand the subject, and then inshallah we'll bring you in towards the end. So Dr. Shoaib, some people, Muslims included, they point to evolution being discussed by the Muslims at the medieval times. How true is this? Is this not anachronistic? I mean, what were they actually discussing?
Right. So one of the things that let's kind of take a step back before we get to that topic. Yeah. So within the group of Muslims who are talking about how to understand the relation between Islam and evolution, there are some people who fall on either extreme, right? So there are some people who are absolute creationists. There's some people who are absolute evolutionists, and there are positions in between which we haven't discussed yet, right? So those positions we will be touching upon later on, inshallah. Now, the people who are in the total evolutionist camp, one of the things that I've noticed that they try and do is to resort to an authority in our tradition to make a case that evolution is something we already believed in a couple of hundred years ago, right? And Whether they're doing this consciously or not, I don't know. I cannot read their minds and hearts. But this is something that is available in their works, okay? And the narrative goes as follows. People like Ar-Rumi, Ibn Khaldun, Ikhwan al-Safa, these guys, you know, God knows how many years ago, they talked about evolution in their material. And so therefore, evolution is not something we should be running away from. It is an idea already expressed and articulated by our scholars of the past. And therefore, we should be going back to that tradition and therefore maintaining that notion that evolution is part of the Islamic heritage. This is the narrative that they are presenting. I critique this narrative in chapter 5 of my book by clearly articulating that this is a false narrative. It is false precisely because evolution was not an understanding that they occupied. When you read their works, it sounds very similar to evolution. For example, people will say there were minerals, then there were plants, then there were animals, then there were monkeys, and then there were human beings, right? It sounds very, very similar to evolution. There's like a progressive chain going up, right? But unfortunately, this discussion is not evolution. Historically, and if you go through any Islamic studies program at any accredited university or even a seminary, you will clearly see and recognize that the language is of a metaphysical picture, which believes in a static conception of the world based on levels of perfection, which is known as the great chain of being, or scala natura, right? So at the top is God. So God is the absolutely perfect being. And then below that, you have lesser perfect beings. So angels, below angels are mankind, below mankind are animals, below animals are plants and minerals, etc. So this is not a scientific theory in any shape or form. This is just a metaphysical or a way of conceiving the world that has a gradient of perfection, with God being at the top of the scale. And so this was a historical artifact that was developed by, you know, Plato and Aristotle. It was appropriated with a religious context within Islam and Christianity and Judaism. And it was a lasting paradigm through which people saw the world. But it does not have any scientific inculcation in it whatsoever. The theory of evolution is a theory about the origins of species. How do species originate, right? So it's talking about a physical theory through which all of us derive each other from. Whereas the scala natura is just a picture of the world based on levels of perfection. So the idea that our past scholars talked about evolution is baseless. There is no base for this whatsoever. At least with the authors that I discuss in my book, no one can conclusively say that they're talking about evolution in any shape or form. They were talking about an artifact of their time called the great chain of being.
MashaAllah. Brother Muhammad, do you have any question for Dr. Shoaib?
Yeah, so I guess one question out of this specifically then. So how do we transition from everything you've said so far to the intersection now, which is what exactly is evolution? What are we talking about? Is it neo-Darwinism, modern synthesis? What is it we're specifically referring to when you say evolution in the title here?
Right,
and then,
right.
And then what does that include? And
right.
what are some of the objections that result when you've, say, done the initial research into this?
Right, right. So evolution, the moment I say that word in a Muslim audience, right, automatically people think of different isms in their head. So automatically will people think of atheism, secularism, humanism, communism as well, right? A bunch of things come up in their head. And all of these isms that have come into people's minds is because of the rhetoric that has been so inculcated in the wider society, both because of Christian narratives as well as atheistic narratives. And it is something that we need to kind of be very careful of doing, because all these isms that have been pushed onto evolution are philosophical garbage. And at the end of it, we need to see the science, what it stands for, and how it's being appropriated in the rhetorical devices of polemics on online media, right? Now, evolution as a scientific theory, it is a very simple theory to understand. And I'll break it down into three propositions, three very simple propositions. The first proposition of evolution is very simply something called deep time, right? The Earth is billions of years old. That's it. That's what deep time means. Previously, our conceptions were that Earth was maybe around 6, maybe 10,000, maybe 20,000 years old, like roughly speaking within those ranges, right? But through developments in physics, particularly radioactivity, we began to realize that our understanding of how the Earth cooled and formulated is much, much older than we anticipated. And so now the current estimate says that Earth was formulated around 4.6 billion years ago, and the universe was created around 14.6 billion years ago. Okay, so deep time basically means that the Earth is really, really old. It's not a few thousand years, it's billions of years old, right? So that's the first proposition of evolution. The second proposition of evolution simply means common ancestry. That's what it's called. Common ancestry is a very basic concept. All of us are familiar with it in our own housing. So I have a mother and father, Mansur has a mother and father, Hashim has a mother and father, Brother Muhammad, you have a mother and father, and they have mothers and fathers, and keep going on and on and on, right? And we begin to see this family tree. We call it a family tree, right? We can see at the top, and then as people keep dividing into sons and grandsons and grand-grandsons and grand-grandsons, etc., we begin to see a lovely tree of life forming. Evolution just goes one step further. It says exactly the same thing with one step further, right? All it says is that species also work that way. Species don't just pop into existence. Species have prior species through which they come out of. So humans did not just pop into existence. They have a prior species, they had a prior species, they had a prior species, etc., etc., etc. So when life first started, it began to evolve and branch out, evolve and branch out, evolve and branch out, just like a family tree that you see in our houses, in our pictures. That's all it means. That's all what common ancestry means. And it is this particular idea of evolution, common ancestry, that marks it very distinctively to whatever we held in the past. In the past, we believe that, humans, if you put a human from a hot climate to a new climate, they will adopt to that climate, right? No problem. They will adapt to that climate, no problem whatsoever. But the idea of species evolving is what is new in the theory of evolution, that we are all connected in this very, very ancient biohistorical lineage. That's what common ancestry means. That since the dawn of life, we have had a lineage that has transpired and has branched up into various different species. So that's proposition number 2, common ancestry. So far, deep time and then common ancestry. The third proposition of evolution are the mechanics, right? So how does evolution tick? What is the clockwork of evolution? Now here, we have to be careful here. So according to neo-Darwinism, which is currently standing as evolutionary orthodoxy, I'll get into the nuances in a second, but neo-Darwinism simply says that there are 2 primary engines of evolution: natural selection and random mutation, right? Natural selection is a simple idea. There's nothing too complicated about it. It simply means if you put a number of species in a given locality, in a given landscape, they have to have features in them that allow them to survive in that landscape. So for example, if I have 100 different species and I put them into the Sahara Desert, which is scorching hot, right? Trust me, I live here, it's scorching hot, right? We have traffic lights melting. That's how hot it is, right? So if you put 100 species in the Sahara Desert, right? The ones that are going to survive are more likely the ones that have thin fur or no fur at all, because they're most acclimatized to that particular locality. The ones that have really thick fur will die out unless they start shedding their fur. Okay, that's what natural selection means. It basically says nature is a filter. Whatever can survive will survive. Whatever cannot adapt and survive will eventually fade out or die away. That's all natural selection means. Simple as that, right? Mm-hmm. And so that is one component of neo-Darwinism. The other component of neo-Darwinism is random mutations. So we have genes. Our most basic biological unit is the gene, right? And that gene is open-ended when it crosses over from parent to offspring. So the gene can either stay the same, can mutate in a positive way or in a negative way. And it is this inherent openness in the gene when couples, procreate, that passes on to kids. And so that's why we see these slight variations between fathers and mothers and their sons and daughters, right? Now, if you keep, processing this mutation across billions and billions of years, you're going to get speciation, right? So coming back to the mechanics, there are 2 aspects. There's this idea of natural selection, which just basically means adapting to a particular landscape. Random mutation, that your genes combine together from parent to offspring, and those they carry sometimes mutations in them that work in different channels. And then when you put all these 3 together, deep time, common ancestry, and then the natural selection and random mutation, you get neo-Darwinism. This is what I mean by evolution today. That's what neo-Darwinism means. Nothing more, nothing less. Doesn't mean humanism, doesn't mean atheism. It just means those three things, right? Whether you're an atheist or a theist is a picture about whether God exists or not. This is what evolution means strictly at a scientific level.
Is that the same as modern synthesis? Because this is the other term that I hear floating around. Is
Yes.
that the same thing?
Yeah. So so in the history, if you go through the history of evolution, at the time of Charles Darwin, there was no concept of the gene. Genes were not known at the time, right? Genes only arrived at the scientific landscape once Darwin passed away. So in the early 20th century, so 1900s and onwards, people began to discover Mendelian genetics, okay? And at first they thought this would work against Darwin's theory, which was just predicated on natural selection. So when Charles Darwin arrived at the theory of evolution, he only suggested natural selection. He had no concept of genes. When Mendelian genetics came onto the landscape, they eventually saw, hang on, we can actually merge natural selection and genetics together, random mutations and natural selection together. When this happened, this is what is known as neo-Darwinism or the modern synthesis. This is the terminology that people have given to this new movement. So when we say Darwinism or neo-Darwinism or the modern synthesis, this is what we're referring to, the combination of natural selection and random mutation.
Wonderful. Okay. So as we come out of that discussion, then, where does it take us in terms of some of the problems that we may have with evolution, then, from a metaphysical perspective? Right.
Before we get onto that, because I do want to give some nuance here so that people may understand, because they may think that I'm just giving one opinion of evolution. So in a lot of channels that I have seen on social media, people will say, hang on, Darwinism is not the only theory around. There are multiple other theories.
Very good point. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to clarify this point so that people are very clear what they're saying, because it will make us look like idiots in the long run, right? I'm sorry if I use that word, by the way. This is just me being very casual.
That's fine. This is
sorry.
An open channel. Yeah.
Yeah. So people will say, hang on, Darwinism is not the only show. There's neo-Lamarckism, there's mutation theory, there's epigenetics, etc., etc., etc. And they will throw a lot of fancy words out there, right? However, we need to be very careful here. There is a growing group of scholars who argue against the idea of mechanics of neo-Darwinism. So let me be clear. The three propositions were deep time, common ancestry, and the mechanics, which were natural selection, random mutation. This is neo-Darwinism. These new group of scholars that are growing, in numbers, right? They're not arguing against the first two propositions. They have no problem with deep time. They have no problem with common ancestry. What they're arguing against is the mechanics of neo-Darwinism. And that is why a bunch of scholars are arguing that perhaps we need to consider other mechanical causes, such as epigenetics, such as evo-devo, and other things that we don't need to worry ourselves with, right? So they are saying that other mechanics could play a part in evolution. Neo-Darwinists will say, nope, we're happy with natural selection and random mutation. These group of scholars say, nope, we need to have other mechanics in place. And so that's why there's a question mark being raised about what is the future of neo-Darwinism. Is it here to stay? Will it be revised? Or will it be abandoned? This is purely a discussion about the mechanics of evolution, not whether evolution occurred or not. Because on both sides of the coin, they still believe in common ancestry. They still believe in common ancestry. So the conflict that Muslims have with Adam and Eve and evolution remains which side of the debate you're on. What happens is, unfortunately, people will take these difference of opinions, blow it out of proportion exponentially to make it seem like the whole theory is under the truck, which is not the case, right? Evolution is a multi-propositional theory, just like Islam is. Islam has many different propositions underneath it. When people say I reject Islam, my first question is, which part of Islam are you rejecting? Right? It's not necessarily the whole thing. They may have a few problems here and there. Same thing. When scientists are debating about evolution, they are debating about the mechanics of evolution, not if it occurred or not. Both sides agree that it has occurred. And I am barring creationists and ID from the conversation. I'm talking about legit evolutionary biologists who are, in their scientific seats across the universities in the world. That's who I'm referring to. So I want to make sure that is clear, just in case people thought that I was being unfair, unnuanced, and simplistic. That's not what I was trying to gear for. I personally just adopt neo-Darwinism, because even the very word Darwinism scratches Muslims. Like it creates an itch in their mind, right? It creates a lot of problems in their head. That's why I stuck to it, because when they think of naturalism, a'udhu billah, astaghfirullah, atheism. When they think of randomness, astaghfirullah, God does not play dice. This is the reason why I stuck to neo-Darwinism. So I clearly highlight my methodology, my scope of study, and the way I analyze things. So I wanted to get that cleared off before we move any further.
So if I can just sort of summarize that into a crude analogy then. So if we imagine evolution as being the car, then what the argument right now is, what type of engine does the car have?
Exactly. Oh, that's a beautiful one. I'm going to use that next time. I like that. Okay. That was a good analogy.
So the discussion isn't around we have a car. No, we have a car. It's called evolution. But what type of engine is it? What's the horsepower? How does it work?
Whether it's V8 or V6, exactly, I don't know. But car talk, by the way, I suck at cars. But yeah, there we go. Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely. But this analogy, I think, really helps, because in many cases, I think this discussion around the engine really sort of clouds the issue around, for many of our brothers and sisters, and what is going on. What it seems so complex.
Yeah.
But in reality, and this is important to understand, I think, for many of our audience and for me as well, which is that when they discuss the engine of evolution, then they're really sort of arguing over a minor point. They're not disagreeing on is it true, not true. They're actually arguing about who's got the right version of the engine, right? And so using that then, so as you said, I think, so as we come off that then, neo-Darwinism is your perspective, because that's the one that we will use moving forward as sort of the default understanding, let's call it, even though there's other options out there.
So to be clear, it's not my perspective.
Sorry.
It's currently the status of evolutionary orthodoxy. Okay? That is what I'm saying.
Good, exactly.
I am using this as the depiction of evolution through which I'm going to have a theological conversation. If neo-Darwinism is true, how much of it as Muslims can we accept? This is my question that I explored.
So let me sort of clarify that again. So this is, you're taking this set of tools and this set of understanding that the orthodoxy of evolution and the scientific community has, and saying, if we analyze it, what are the conclusions that we arrive at? And the tool set that you're using to do this is the Sunni Ash'ari like glasses that you're putting on.
Yeah.
To say, if we take this theological perspective and we apply it to this problem, what are the answers that we get? And really, so this is not, guys, this is not Dr. Shoaib coming up with his own particular opinion here. This is really an academic exercise that's been undertaken to say, if Imam Ghazali was still alive and he was presented with this problem, for instance, what conclusion would he arrive at?
Yeah.
Is that a simple way to say it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And here's the point. So this is in logic, this is called a conditional framing, right? So even if, let's just say we have some people in the audience who reject neo-Darwinism. They hate evolution. They don't want anything to evolution. Fine, no problem. Let's just say, for the sake of the argument, neo-Darwinism is true. For the sake of the argument, how much of it can we accept? So even if you disbelieve in evolution, you can follow the argument and see where the conclusions are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, that's good, mashallah. So I just want to make a few statements here. We got the link to Dr. Shoaib's book in the description of the video. So it's the link, the PDF for the PDF book, and it's free of charge. Please keep in your dua about Dr. Shoaib and also the gentleman or the person who donated the money to make this book free of charge, inshallah. And also there's a link to a course that Dr. Shoaib will be running again. This is the second time, I believe. Inshallah, he'll give us more details about the course. So there's a link to register for that in the description of the video as well. And if you guys are enjoying the live stream and also getting value from the Dawah Wise channel, please do subscribe, share, and like the videos and also the live streams, inshallah. So Dr. Shoaib, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I think you mentioned ID quite a few times. Just for the audience, it means intelligent design. So the question that many of the lay Muslims, I used to ask these questions as well in my early days when I wasn't up to speed with evolution. I mean, may Allah give ajr and reward to Brother Subur. MashaAllah, he has really upped the ante when it comes to evolution discussions at Speaker's Corner, alhamdulillah. So the questions that they normally ask is, a few of the questions will still pop up. It's like, oh, is evolution is just a theory? Why should we believe it? Second, the missing links are still missing. Why do we have to believe this? They haven't even sorted out these missing links still. So these kind of questions, I know it's you probably were thinking like, why they're still asking this, but I think for the brevity of the discussion and for the show, and so that everybody who's our audience, they include both people who understand evolution, also lay people. So inshallah, if you can just give us some insight on that.
Sure. So there's a well-known idea that evolution is called evolutionary theory, therefore it's just a theory, right? And therefore it's just a speculation, therefore we should reject it. That's what comes to mind, right? Now we have to understand there's a difference between language that we use on a daily basis and language we use in specialized disciplines, right? For the sake of example, right? So I'm gonna test you guys now, because I'm gonna ask you the questions. You're in the hot seat, okay? Ready for some physics? So when I want to ask you how much you weigh, I will use the word weigh. What is your weight, Brother Hashim? You don't have to answer that. Just I will say, what is your weight, okay? However, in physics, what does the word weight mean? Do you know, Brother Hashim?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of something to do with gravity, I suppose is the way you're leading to?
Yes, that's it, yeah, that's it, yeah. So weight in normal language just means your kilograms or pounds. How many kilograms or pounds are you? In physics, it means something specific. It means the gravitational force upon you, right? Which is in newtons. It's a different unit altogether, right? The same way, when we have Arabic words, sometimes those Arabic words get specialized based on which domain you're looking at, be it tafsir, usul al-fiqh, whatever have you, okay? Theory is a word like that. Theory in the normal everyday language pretty much means a guess, a speculation. This is my theory, that's your theory, okay? And khalas, that's it, game over. In scientific discussions, theory has a different meaning. Theory means it has the highest level of robustness, right? You cannot go further than that, right? Because it has received so much empirical backing. It has stuck out its neck so many occasions that it's just now the highest level that you can achieve. So theory in a scientific discourse does not mean speculation or a hypothesis or a guess. It means the highest level you can achieve based on empirical measures. So if people are using this word to kind of blow out the smoke on evolution, this is just a semantic issue that people have, right? So please be aware that when we're talking about evolution in a scientific context, particularly with the word theory, it means it has reached the highest level of corroboration. And this is not something I'm saying. Go to any university institution, into any biology or evolutionary department, ask them the same thing, they will give you the same answer, right? Of course, scientists don't believe that it's unquestionable, because I want to make sure this is clear. Dennis Alexander, who's an evolutionary biologist himself, right? He himself said, for the people who want to refute evolution, please go ahead, because if you do, you will win a Nobel Prize, because you have then completely redefined our understanding of evolution. Because then you've shown that we are wrong, and then we have something now better to look up to, right? So you can get a Nobel Prize for debunking evolution. So it's as simple as that. If you really want to think that evolution is false, go ahead, be the evolutionary biologist, right? Get the funds and try and beat out evolution as the best explanation of origins of species. That is something that they're open to. Of course, I'm excluding aggressive atheists who want to latch on this theory for whatever rhetorical, polemical purposes. I'm barring them aside. But otherwise, scientists have no problem changing their opinions on these subject matters, because science can be self-correcting. So when it comes to the attitude of scientists, generally speaking, feel free to debunk evolution if you can, and you will get a Nobel Prize, because at the moment, this is the highest level of scientific establishment as a theory. There's nothing more than that whatsoever.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I mean, many people are still thinking like, oh, it's many theories, scientific theories in the past, they changed. So I believe to answer them is basically, like, if you think that the evolutionary theory is something that you can debunk, like Dr. Shoaib said, then please go ahead. So until it's debunked, or until it's disproven, it remains as being acceptable.
Yeah.
Well, what I say is the best possible explanation that we have at the moment.
Yeah.
That's really what it is, right?
Yeah, it's
and
the best
all
explanation.
scientific theories are like that. It's the
Yeah.
best possible
Until they are disproven.
Until they're disproven, yeah. Until they're disproven. And like I said, evolution has so many different lines of convergence from many different disciplines that you would have to come up with a lot of sufficient evidence to kind of really debunk it. So I personally, as a Muslim, I have no problem if evolution is true today, and I'll get to that in a while, or if it's falsified tomorrow, because of the several options that I have in front of me, theologically speaking. And we'll get to that. I'm kind of beating the punchline here. But whether evolution is false or not, it makes no difference to me as a Muslim.
Yeah.
And I know we won't be able to cover it here, but I know in the book, for instance, for those, please go download it, by the way, and read it. The link's down below in the description. You cover actually 9 of these, out of the many, you cover 9 of the top objections that most people sort of put forward. So I think if you want to really sort of deep, or at least, if you want to at least get some insights into this, and how we address them or how they're being described, go read the chapter in the book. It's very early on in the book, actually. I think chapter 1, that discusses them. So go read those paragraphs. It's, the book is actually quite easy reading, at least the first few chapters. Chapter, I think 6 and 10, I think, are quite sort of deep. But certainly the first chapter 1, chapter 2, and 3, which really sort of set the scene, are actually quite easy reading. And certainly, I would recommend that you go at least read the first 2 or 3 chapters to get sort of an understanding behind some of this.
Yeah, I think there was a question I asked which wasn't answered about the missing links.
Right.
Oh yeah, the fossil record. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the fossil record objection, right, has been something that came early on from Christian literature, and this is something that's been harped up again and again and again. Right. Now the thing is, we read these as in any textbook evolution, you will find examples of how we had missing links, how we're able to find those missing links through one point in time or later on, right? Not necessarily of all of them, because scientists are very clear that we are not going to have a complete fossil record, primarily because bones, biological material, decay, right? It's only in very particular situations that things are able to get fossilized, and we are able to get high resolution of animals or plants that live for whatever X millions or billions of years ago, right? But despite the odds, despite the chemistry working against us based on physiochemistry of decay, we still have the records to be able to show that there have been interconnections and common ancestry. But more importantly, and this is the key point, the fossil record is only one line of evidence. It is not the only line of evidence, right? That's the key point here. It is one line of evidence. There are other lines of evidence which, if you put together, you substantiate common ancestry. It's like, for example, hadith. If you have several hadith that have the same meaning, right? The same meaning, but they're each independently weak. But if you put them together, you increase the rank of the hadith, right? Same thing goes here. Individually, these are just inferences based on a particular line of inquiry, but together they will raise up the evidential status of evolution. So for the fossil record, again, I highly recommend anyone to do this, right? If you are bursting to defeat evolution, go to any evolutionary institute, any biology institution whatsoever. I recommend the Milner Center of Evolution in Bath. Okay, that's a good one. That is a particular institution geared for evolution, and it's primarily all about studying with evolution, right? Go ahead, right? Go ahead and see what kind of records that they have there. See the record for yourself, right? Different examples of what they have there. But for me, the fact that there are gaps in fossil record is a given from the scientists, number one. Number two, in of itself, it is a roughly intermediate level evidence for evolution. It must be coupled with other aspects of evolutionary evidences to fully complete the explanation for evolution. That's all I'm saying.
So just to step in here, brothers, we will be having a Q&A at the end of this program as well, by the way. So just to let our audience know, if you can sort of hold on as we sort of get to the end of the first part of the show, we will open the line for Q&A, and we'll be sharing the link very shortly. So I can see a lot of questions in the chat.
There's a brother who asked a question, so I would like to put this.
So we're not addressing them right now, but if you really have a
let's take a note of that, inshallah, and
please join. You can ask later. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the other questions I think people have in mind when we're talking about the objections to evolution, I mean, we're not going to cover everything here in this part of the program. They think because the very nature, the concept of evolution, it's the whole mechanism is by randomness. Evolution operates in a random manner, random mutation. The question often is asked, doesn't that undermine God's or Allah's omnipotence and his omniscience?
Right. Okay. Right. So this is one of the big ones, I would say, right? So in fact, you raised a deeper point, which I'll touch upon after I directly answer your question. So in Islam, in Sunni Islam, across all three schools, we believe that Allah is omnipotent, he's omniscient, so he has all power, all knowledge, right? And there's nothing that he can do. Okay? Now, if we believe that evolution, that's for the sake of the argument, right? For the sake of the argument. Let's say evolution is true, and the process of evolution is based on random mutations. Does that mean, astaghfirullah, Allah doesn't know what he's doing? Or does it question his wisdom? This is the objection that comes across, right? Now, I want to make sure this is very clear, because when people talk about randomness, again, what does randomness mean in this context? Okay, Brother Mansur, I'm going to pick on you, right? So, let's just say we're tossing a coin, yeah? Now, logically speaking, you know it's going to be heads or tails, correct? But when I toss a specific coin on a particular moment, would you know at that particular toss for 100% whether it's going to be heads or tails? No. You can guess, but you can never say with 100% certainty, right? Because of the way the air particles work, how the coin is basically shaped up, the gravitational forces, how it's moving, etc. All those elements come together to define whether it's going to be heads or tails, right? Now that, would you call is random or chance? Would you say that that is a chance outcome? You don't know what exactly is going to come out, right? That's a chance outcome. We don't know. We don't know what the exact outcome is, right? Now, if randomness means that God is, not omnipotent or not omniscient, that means a coin toss means Allah is not omnipotent or not omniscient. That's what you're saying. Because in science, all it means when we're talking about random mutations is a mutation can occur, right? It doesn't have to occur, it can occur. And if it occurs, it can either be a positive mutation or a negative mutation. And the source of that mutation can be a variety of different things. It can be, X-rays, it can be due to genetic copying, whatever, a bunch of things, right? That's what randomness means. It just simply means that we as human beings cannot exactly know exactly what caused that mutation at what point in time with the exactitude that we know. That's all that means. Just like a coin toss. When I toss a coin, I don't know whether it's going to be heads or tails on a particular toss. Just like when a mutation occurs, I cannot tell you exactly when it's going to occur or how it occurred. I have a range of explanations, possibilities, but I cannot give you a definite answer. And so this kind of randomness in the literature of philosophy is known as epistemic randomness. It means it is based on our limitations as human beings. We do not have the full knowledge. We do not have information of all the particles. We don't have information about how things are operating at a point-by-point basis. Therefore, we can't even predict on a single coin toss which one is going to come out with absolute certainty. We can't. We don't. Right? We don't know that. The same way in evolution, when things mutate, we can't know with absolute certainty exactly which one it's going to be or what caused it, because there are multiple possibilities there. That's all it means. And so when we're saying a coin toss occurs, Brother Mansur, who's controlling that coin toss every single moment? Who knows about the outcome? Allah. God. If evolution is true, if evolution is true, could he not do things by random mutation? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Allah is, he's all knowledgeable, he's all powerful. That's it. That is it. That's all that means. So we have to stop understanding randomness as if this is a conception that is applicable to Allah. When we say randomness, it means we as human agents do not have absolute certainty of what the outcome or the prediction is going to look like. But it doesn't mean Allah doesn't know what he's doing. To say that is nearly borderlining shirk, because now you are limiting Allah by saying that he cannot do a process like evolution. He can, absolutely can. Absolutely he can. So randomness should not be an issue for us. Because if you're saying randomness in evolution is a problem for God, then that means you're saying a coin toss is a problem for God. That's all you're saying.
I think that should clarify.
This is a great question. So I think if I sort of summarize that, what it really points to, as I hear this, is it's more about human limitation being imposed upon God, right? Just because we have this ability to not be able to predict, we sort of somehow think that this automatically translates to the infinite as well, and this is clearly a miscategorization of really of two different categories. So if we then so as we look at that, where does that take us in terms of really sort of addressing this issue of because you said this was a Christian understanding. How much of these objections really came from that side of the theological spectrum and that understanding that maybe we've sort of unknowingly absorbed?
Right. So I want to address two points.
I mean, really want to know to what extent I'm really sort of asking.
Yeah. So this is a very good question, right? So you have to bear in mind that historically speaking, evolution was developed in a Christian context, and therefore it was flushed through Christian lens as a first theological contact point, right? That's historically speaking, right? No debate there. So when Charles Darwin proposed his theory, the most immediate reception was by Christian thinkers, including theologians, philosophers, and scientists, okay? Developed in that matrix were certain responses. Some positively accepted evolution, some did not, and some were in the middle. Now, all of the arguments that we see in Islamic literature come from the Christian literature, naturally, right? Naturally. Now, you have to bear in mind, evolution was developed in 1859, okay? That is what he's saying, in 1859. Now, back in those days, most of the Islamic learning centers were under the caliphate, right? And so when a lot of scientific production came into the Muslim world, it came through centers in Syria, Jesuits, through Christian missionaries and institutions that were across the Middle East at the time. And so a lot of the Christian baggage came across there as well. So if you read a book by Marwa al-Shakri, she has a book called Reading Darwin in Arabic. It's published by Chicago University Press. She highlights these, right? That a lot of these Christian sensitivities made their way in Muslim lands because of the Jesuit institutions that were present, because of missionary activities, right? So this is something we see today. Now, that was a historical precursor. The modern advocate of somebody who's kind of copy-pasted from the Christian West and has implemented with an Islamic garb is Harun Yahya. Harun Yahya is, a self-made scholar. He's a Turkish scholar, right? So not even a scholar, just a spokesperson, right? Who wrote several books about evolution, right? And it's literally copy-paste word for word, or just literally borrowings from Christian literature to argue against evolution. And that individual right now is in jail because of scams and frauds that he has done, right? But this is somebody who exploded the Muslim world with anti-evolution rhetoric because of that copy-pasting culture. So there has been a very heavy impression on Muslims by Christian problems when it comes to evolution. That's the key point here, that we have been heavily impressed. Now, this is, to be clear, not all Christians have rubbed off on Muslims. That's not the case. It is only the creationist think tanks that have made their influence in the Muslim world. And to their advantage, it is to their advantage, because then they can say, look, it's not just us Christians. We have Muslims in support. We have Jews in support. Therefore, what we're saying is true. We're talking from numbers here, right? So that's the problem that we see here. So that's the first point that I wanted to address, right? That we have had this borrowing phase, and we have subconsciously or unknowingly borrowed and adopted a lot of their arguments, when in fact, some of the problems that they have are Christian problems. Randomness is not an Islamic problem. The age of the earth is not an Islamic problem. It is a problem for Christians, particularly some Christians, who take the Bible a little bit too literally. It is for them that's an issue, but not for us. So when we are reading Christian works to talk about new issues, and this is not just evolution, this is a broader problem. Currently, Christian philosophers and theologians are running the philosophy gun, right? They're the top producers of academic works, of academic publications, and we are lagging behind. So just to give you an example, on Amazon, just type in atheism. Just type in atheism and religion. All of the responses to atheism are by, like thousands of them, are by Christians, whether they're theological, philosophical, whatever have you, right? And then, if you look at the same site from Islam, only 5 books. Only 5 books. I'm just speaking from the English language, of course, but only 5 books. That is a huge discrepancy. That is a huge discrepancy. So naturally, what will most Muslims do, particularly if they're inclined towards reading in the English language? They will go through Christian works first, right? They will go through Christian works first. That's their prime reference. And so naturally, there's going to be some kind of absorption in that process. So we need to be very careful when going through Christian literature, because there's some things that are Christian specific that we don't want to convert into a Muslim problem. So that's the highlight we need to be wary of, in my opinion.
And you know, just to point, I mean, this is not the topic for today's discussion, but just to point out that under deep Christian theology, for instance, depending on, you know, sort of where you stand, they actually deny attributes of God, right? In a very fundamental way, right? Which is completely opposed to Islam. And if you use those lenses to arrive at theological answers, you can see how perverted and how misdirected the answers will be. And if you take them on, it will cause problems for your aqidah. And at the end of the day, what I would say is, look, if there is any issue with you not understanding aqidah, then look, just go to your local masjid and learn. You know, don't even try stepping into this field before you have, because if your foundation is not steady enough to read these texts and walk away without polluting your understanding of aqidah, then you already have a problem that you need to resolve. And that would be the conclusion that I would say here, for sure.
Yeah.
And brothers, do you want to maybe make any comments on that?
Yeah, and that brings us to the next question, which I think is quite crucial when it comes to this particular topic. So, Dr. Shoaib, based on your experience and from the years you've been learning about evolution, I'm sure there are lots of people who come to you for clarifying their doubts and so on. So do you think there is a particular demographic that has been impacted by this particular topic? And if you could perhaps give us some examples from your experience, inshallah.
So from a geographical point of view, I think it's across the world. You know, Indonesia, Egypt, Malaysia, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, the Middle East. In terms of age groups, I think the biggest age group that has been hit hard by this is the 15 to 25 age gap. And my argument for that is, it is anecdotal to a large extent, but also just from looking at some sociological surveys on Islam and evolution. So the key problem is, and I think we're now coming to the deeper issues of why evolution has become the issue that it is today, is that face it, on an infrastructural level, that a lot of Muslims do not have the right theological backbone, right? Most of our kids don't even know the basic goals sometimes. I was a product of that. I didn't know what Bismillah meant until I was 21. I can say that wholeheartedly without a problem, right? That was my background. I didn't know what La ilaha illallah meant until I was 21, right? Until I started my PhD. So when you don't have that theological backbone, and you are in an institution which pushes science down your throat, not in a negative way, it's just that's what it is. That's the education system, right? Science is always now in your immediate front face, and you study it in high school, you study at college, you study at university, it's there, right? And so when Muslims try to look at science and Islam as a point of conversation, their first reference is going to be, okay, this is what the science is telling us. And so naturally, they're going to have questions. Naturally. And so a lot of teenagers in particular, a lot of university students in particular, when they have these questions, the dilemma is, who do they go to? Who do they go to? A lot of imams do not necessarily know how to address this question. No offense to imams whatsoever, absolutely no offense, right? I've spoken to several imams, and I don't have any offense with them. I work with imams, just to be clear. But sometimes they don't know, right? Some of them may not know the nitty-gritties of evolution to be able to explain what the problems are. Some of them may not have assessed it theologically to be able to say what is the issue or what is not the issue. And so that's why when they go to imams, they don't have an answer. They go to parents, the parents don't have answers, right? Naturally. And so you get a lot of confusion in this age gap. And it is this particular age gap that I really wanted to try and get to, in addition to other subcategories of the Muslim world, to explain to them exactly what the debate is, so at least understand what evolution is, what Islam says, and then see the points of contacts between them, and then make up your mind. But what happens is, sometimes in the conversation, is that we get one-handed answers. So the scientist will just say evolution is true without caring anything to do with the theology. And likewise, we'll have theologians who will say evolution is false without caring anything to do with the science. And both of these are massive sweeps of a very complex conversation. And that's the key problem, that this whole discussion is very interdisciplinary. You need to have a lot of footing in theology, you need to have footing in philosophy, and you need to have your footing in the science. And let's face it, most people can't give up their time to do that. It's a hard question to deal with, and it's a long investment to make. So naturally, what is going to happen is that people will get confused. And this is both at the 15 to 25 age gap, but also on the higher up level sometimes as well. So I feel that we need to kind of show the different positions that are out there, explain to them in clear conversational manner, and then build the ground up from there, inshallah. That is my approach.
I guess it's also worth pointing out that a lot of the curriculums by design at the moment take a naturalistic perspective on explaining almost everything. The presumption from the get-go is there has to be a natural reason that this happened, and the supernatural is excluded, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to the issues of what is taught at the education level, be it public or private schools and universities, you have to bear in mind their job is to produce employees at the end of the day, right? This whole culture is to produce employees at the end of the day, right? Very few institutions are generally liberal art institutions, where the purpose of knowledge is to seek it because it is good for you, not because there's a job waiting for you at the end of the day, right? So the knowledge that needs to be complemented with the, I don't like to use the word secular, but your normal education, high school education, university education, that needs to be complemented with a theological backbone. Because personally speaking, once I learned theology, I was able to have everything clearly understood in front of me, particularly when it came to science and religion discussions. And I think that same level of instruction of complementing your studies with Islamic theology is the way forward. And I believe if we have that at a very strong level, particularly from a young age, inshallah, that will grow up and up and up, and we'll be able to engage with a lot of difficulties that are thrown our way.
This is a very good point, because I had a very similar journey, and I think once you realize and you internalize really what Islam has to offer, then the foundation really, no matter what's thrown at you, you can shake it off.
Yeah.
And just that confidence alone, I think, gives you a sense of ease, right, in your belief, in your worship, in everything you do. That I don't need to worry about these things, and often because they lack this, I think a lot of the youth, certainly, I work with a lot of youth locally in my community, is I see them going to what they see as success, which is typically material success, as the answer to fill the gap, which should have been filled with theological understanding. Mm-hmm. And so they chase, the cars, the glitz, the glitter, whatever, and you find they all end up in places they shouldn't do. And then they, we've seen them all, they go off the rails, and we have the social problems that we have. And I think a lot of this now really has to be, look, we're not going to, especially in the Western world, we're not going to change the university curriculums. We're not going to change the school curriculums. What we can do, at least as parents, is address what is taught and how we teach them outside of those hours.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and obviously we need to do that in a thoughtful, considerate manner, of course. You know, and sensitive manner, because there's a lot of influences at the moment that I don't want to talk about, but that could influence, let's say, to what extent you can do certain kinds of teaching without causing other kinds of issues. I mean, this is not the topic today, but I think the issue is that you know your children better than we do. You as parents, you're the ones that needs to deal with your children at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, don't leave it to other people, because if you leave it to other people, the sort of people they will go to is not the sort of people you want them to learn from. Yeah.
Yeah. It can damage your theological worldview. Yeah.
Exactly.
At the moment, I think a brother called Awais, comment was put up at some point. I can't find it anymore. But I was actually in conversation, or rather, I know of right now 2 families whose sons have left Islam because part of their reasoning was evolution.
Wow.
So evolution is a big concern. Evolution is a big concern, and this is not the first time. When I was in Nottingham, I used to have parents contact me from London in particular that our son has problems with evolution. Can you please speak to him? So evolution, I know, is slowly growing as a concern, as a categorical concern, because of the way that it's been instrumentalized in the atheist-theist polemics.
And in all of the respects, these are smart kids.
Yeah, yeah. Both of these guys are in Cambridge.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
That really brings us to really discuss this question now openly and clearly. It's the issues about compatibility.
Yeah.
Is it, we're going to say Islam or evolution, or Islam and evolution?
Right. So I think when we talk about Islam and evolution now we're talking about how you can stitch them together, right? What I can do, just for the sake of simplicity, is I can give you the 4 different positions that I've developed in my own book. Would you like that? Yeah, I think that'd be a good way to kind of, right. So let me explain the 4 different positions that I have developed, which will hopefully kind of be an accessible starting point for us to have a meaningful conversation about Islam and evolution, right? However, I just want to make this very clear before. No, actually, I'll make that clear later on. But let me start sharing my screen. 1 second. Right. Hang on. Why is it not working? Oh, hang on. Wait, I see. Can you guys see it?
Not yet.
Oh, yeah.
I think admin, we need to share something here.
How about now?
Nope.
Nothing?
Okay, let's see. There you
Oh
go.
yeah, now it's it.
All right. Okay. So let me. Yeah. Okay. So let me just make this. Right. Oh.
Yeah.
Why did it, there we go. Oops.
And
Right. So let me explain this diagram so the people who are watching, you can now at least have a language to explain to realize that there are different positions. There are 4 different positions in this matter. Okay. So I'll start off with the top position, which is known as creationism. And so bearing in mind, there's 3 questions that I'm asking. Are non-humans products of evolution? So this includes animals and plants. Are humans products of evolution? Is Adam a product of evolution? Right? So let's address these. Creationism is the specific position in this conversation that nothing in common ancestry is true. Nothing. So therefore, nothing is a product of evolution. So that's why you have these 3 X's at the top. So creationism says there is nothing in evolution that is true. Common ancestry is complete, false. God instantaneously created all these different species. So that's the creationist position, right? I want to then go straight to no exceptions. No exceptions is the direct opposite of the creationist camp, right? It's the direct opposite. It states that everything in evolution, everything that we know came out of evolutionary processes, including human beings, including Adam and Eve. They must have had a mother and father. So these 2 are extremes, okay? These are the 2 extreme positions. In between in between, we have two positions, right? The position of human exceptionalism should be very easy to understand. And human exceptionalism is the idea that evolution is true for everything except for human beings. And this position maintains, because Adam and Eve are the first members of human beings, therefore humans are excluded entirely from the evolutionary process. Okay? So creationism, evolution is false in total. No exceptions, evolution is true in its entirety. Human exceptionalism, evolution is true except for human beings. The third position is known as Adamic Exceptionalism. Now, to explain this position, what I need to do is explain two principles. And once I can explain those, this position will make sense, inshallah. Okay? Now, I've used the word Adamic Exceptionalism here, but this is short for both Adam and Eve. It's short for both Adam and Eve. I just use Adamic as a shorthand, right? So now, in Adamic Exceptionalism, the first position that we need to be wary of is the idea of tawaqquf, suspending judgment. Okay, and this has a very important meaning in Aqidah, in theology. Brother Mansur, let's have a conversation. No, actually, you've had your turn. Brother Muhammad, are you there?
I'm here. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So let's put you on the hot seat. All right. So, one basic question: does Islam have a position against dinosaurs? Yes or no?
It's silent.
What? No. Does Islam have a position against dinosaurs?
Well, against no.
No. Does Islam have a position for the existence of dinosaurs? Yes or no? No. Right? It doesn't have a position either for or against. Why? Because the Quran and Hadith make no mention of it. Yeah? That's the reason why. If the Quran stated, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ittaqu amanu bid dinosaurs, believe in dinosaurs, it would be part of your creed. That's what it would be, right? If the Quran stated very clearly, you must believe in dinosaurs, it would be part of your creed. But the Quran makes zero mention. So whether you believe in dinosaurs or not, does it make any difference to you as a Muslim?
Yes.
Makes no difference, right? Makes zero difference to you as a Muslim, correct?
Yes, correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, good. So now, with that in place, right? With that in place. So when we talk about tawaqquf, it means that the Quran has no mention of it whatsoever. So regardless of which position you take, it makes no difference. The Quran doesn't talk about periodic tables. The Quran doesn't talk about protons, electrons, neutrons. The Quran talks about none of those things, right? That we usually have entertainment in science. So whatever the Quran and the Hadith do not mention, you cannot have a religious proposition over it. Simple as that. Okay? Because in the level of theology, you need something called qat'i dalala wa qat'i thubut. You need established veracity of the testimony or of the transmission of the scripture, as well as clear, unambiguous meaning from scripture. So those are the two conditions that you need, right? So very clearly, tawaqquf is a valid hermeneutic position. If the Quran and Hadith mention nothing, you cannot make it into a religious issue anymore. It is why whether you believe in dinosaurs or not make zero difference. It is your personal opinion at the end of the day. Okay? So that's the first principle. The second principle, according to the Quran, now all three of you can join in. So this is Brother Mansur, Brother Hashim, all the three of you can chip in, right? Like in a class.
This is a class exercise.
Okay. So, according to the Quran, what is the definition of human origins? What is the definition of insan in terms of origins?
Created by Allah.
Created
by Allah, exactly.
Without parents.
His own hands, yeah.
Yes, so Allah created Adam and Eve without any parents. This is something that we have known from Zuhuri texts, right? So Allah created Adam and Eve miraculously, okay? And then all of human beings kicked off from there, right? That is our origin from a theological standpoint, right? Cool. All right. Now, we know that our origins are from Adam and Eve from a theological angle, all right? Theological angle. But when evolutionary biologists are talking about human beings, do they have the same definition in mind?
Well, clearly not. No.
No.
Yeah.
Our definition of us being from Adam and Eve is a theological definition of origins. It is a theological statement. Okay? It is not necessarily a biological statement, it is a theological statement. Okay? Now, within the broader understanding of human beings as understood in evolutionary biology, yeah, which is a broader terminology than Adam and Eve. Human beings in evolutionary biology means any entity that has our physiology, our genetics. They may be similar or somewhat similar, but they roughly look like us. That's what it means in evolutionary biology, simple as that. So the understanding of a human being in biology is a broader definition than the narrow definition of insan in the theological category. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Very, very clear. Yes.
Okay. Now, putting these two principles together, the Quran is crystal clear, according to Adamic Exceptionalism, that Adam had no mother and father, that Eve, and he was created miraculously, that Eve was created miraculously from Adam in some shape or form, and that all of us must have our lineage that can be traced back to Adam and Eve. This is clear. Adamic Exceptionalism accepts that. Okay? However, Adamic Exceptionalism says you have to do tawaqquf on the idea of there being other biological human beings, entities that may have similar physiological makeup as us. Okay? You have to do tawaqquf on this issue. Allah never talks about what coexisted at the time of Adam alayhi salam. Never. He doesn't talk about that, right? So they could have existed, they could not have existed. Both are possible. Both are possible, right? So you do tawaqquf on this issue. You do tawaqquf on this issue, right? So their existence is an open question. You're agnostic about that. The next thing is, you also do tawaqquf on whether those other human beings could have intermarried with the kids of Adam and Eve. And so therefore, if that possibility remains open, you do tawaqquf on those issues. You have a lineage that goes back to Adam and Eve, but you now also have a lineage that goes back to the origins of life. This is the position of Adam and Eve, of Adamic Exceptionalism. This is what I define as Adamic Exceptionalism.
So how does that relate to, for instance, when you say no mention is made, but in I think Surah Al-Baqarah verse 30, where it says the angel said, will you create another creation that's going to shed blood and cause corruption in the land? Is that not indicating that there was something else there that they recognized?
Yeah, so there are a couple of interpretations of that. So the angels said that out of curiosity, right? They were just in awe. That's one interpretation. Some people say that it was the jinn, that it's referring to the jinn, but those are based on weak ahadith. Some, and this is one one Indian scholar from Bangalore, India. He mentioned in one of his books from 1968, even though he's a creationist, he said this is a very interesting verse because potentially you could interpret this as that there being very similar entities looking like Adam on earth, because only when they saw Adam, they said this. And more importantly, they said shedding blood. Jinns don't have blood, right? Jinns don't have blood. So he said that you could possibly use this to suggest that there is an idea that there could have been other human beings alongside Adam alayhi salam. That's it.
But when you say human beings,
not a tafsir, though. This is an academic suggestion. Right? It's not a tafsir.
Yeah. So if that possibility is there, wallahu a'lam, right? We know the Quran tells us very clearly, very, very clearly, right, that Adam alayhi salam exists, right? He was created miraculously, his wife was created miraculously. All of us have a lineage back to those two. But the Quran is silent. You do tawaqquf on there being or pre-Adamic human beings, all right, who could have intermingled with Adam's descendants. They could have mingled. You do tawaqquf on this issue. You cannot make, if you are saying that this occurred or not, you have done something haram because you're saying something that Allah Himself has not stated. If for example, you said that Allah never created unicorns, that is haram because you're saying something Allah has not revealed in the Quran. If you're saying that that in Islam it is haram to believe in dinosaurs, you have committed a sin because you're saying something Allah Himself did not reveal in the Quran Hadith. The same way, we have to be silent about these possibilities of there being other or pre-Adamic human beings, right? And I know this is unnerving for a lot of people, very unnerving, because Muslims have generally believed that Adam and Eve were the first human beings, right? And all of us came to them. Now, bear in mind, our classical scholars never ever entertained evolution. So this is a new inquiry. So this idea of there being or pre-Adamic human beings never existed in their time. This is a new inquiry, right? So therefore, in the biological understanding of other entities that may have similar biological entities as us, remember, I'm talking about the biological entity, right? That is a broader category than the kids of Adam. But many people are saying, well, what about Bani Adam? Bani Adam simply means the kids of Adam, right? The Quran clearly calls us Bani Adam. No problem whatsoever. When these other entities existed, when they intermarried, they would be absorbed in Bani Adam. All of us must have a lineage back to Adam and Eve. All of us. That is crystal clear from the verse. But the Quran is clearly silent about the issue of there being or pre-Adamic human beings that could have existed alongside Adam and Eve, through which people could have intermarried. Now, I'm not saying this happened. I'm saying we have to do tawaqquf on this issue. You can neither use the Quran and Hadith to argue against it, nor can you use the Quran and Hadith to affirm it. You leave it open. You leave it open. That is the point here. You leave these options open.
Just want to clarify one point here then. I mean, it looks like we have to clarify some definitions. When we talk about human or human being, bashar or insan from the theological perspective, we were referring to Adam alayhi salam. But when you were talking about human from the biological sense, from the scientific standpoint, they have a broader definition. So that's when you say pre-Adamic. So those entities which may have similar physiologies or biological makeup almost to human beings, they're also classified as human beings, and that's why they're called Homo, with a Homo genus there, Homo sapien, and we are Homo sapiens sapiens. So that's where the difference is, isn't it? So when we're talking about, from a theological standpoint, human refers to only Adam alayhi salam, and that's what I said, definite understanding theologically there. But when scientists or in science, when the discussion occurs, it has a broader definition.
Yeah. So that's why I said very clearly that the theological definition of human is basically starting with the origin of Adam and Eve. They were created miraculously, and then everything passed on from there on. But the biological definition is broader than that. It means any entity that has physiological, biological, genetic, behavioral traits as us. That wider meaning is not captured in theology. It's not captured in theology, right? It simply defines insan and bashar as the kids of Adam. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less than that. So the existence of these other entities, right, that may be similar to us or not, right, their existence must be left as an agnostic question mark. Could have existed, could not have existed. Could have intermarried, could not have intermarried with Adam's descendants. Wallahu a'lam. So therefore, the possibility of human evolution could be true. That's it. That is it. This is the position of Adamic Exceptionalism. So some people are saying, I can see Brother I don't know how to say, Can Haktan, saying that means Adam was not a special creation. Not at all. Allah tells us Adam is a special creation. Allah blew His spirit into him. He created him without a mother and father. That is special enough, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that he's jism, just because it matches somebody, it loses his specialness, right? Doesn't mean that at all, right? His specialness is still maintained. But the idea here is very simple, that we cannot negate the possibility, theologically speaking. I'm saying this from a theological angle. You cannot, from a theological, creedal, aqidah point of view, say that these entities never existed. You can never ever say that. And that is the point here. You can never make that, because you need something called qat'i dalala wa qat'i thubut. Clear evidence, scripture. There is nothing scripturally that indicates nothing coexisted besides Adam and Eve. The Quran is silent on the matter. So therefore, the possibility remains open. The same way that we believe in dinosaurs or not, it is an open question theologically, because the Quran doesn't address it. Same thing here. Exactly the same thing here. Wallahu alam.
Jazakallah khair. Are you going to share any more from your slides, or I can take this off?
Oh no, you can take this down. We can talk about the valid possibilities later on. So by the way, just to make sure everybody's clear, I haven't said which of those 4 options are valid or invalid. I have just given you the gist of those 4 positions based on what's available in the literature. As we go through these 2 sessions, inshallah, you should be able to make up your mind what you are comfortable with or not. But I am simply just explaining these positions to all of you. So please don't interfight with yourselves in the chat, because I can see some people
I was going to actually say that. So,
from the point.
yeah, so just to sort of simplify this, all Dr. Shoaib is doing here is saying, look, when we do the analysis, here are the 4 positions that we can take. Now, which one is most appropriate? That's what we'll discuss next, right? And that's really down to the research sort of explanation that we'll go into in session 2. So for now, just to summarize what we've done today is really taken through a foundation of the topic, what evolution is, what some of the challenges of evolution presents to believers, what some of the origins of this particular line of thinking, where it leads to. And what we've arrived at right now is saying, can we achieve a reconciliation between Islam and Neo-Darwinism? Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't told you what to believe yet, or which position to take. That hasn't been said. So let's be absolutely clear here. Nobody is saying you must take one of these positions.
Yeah.
We'll explain
this is what's
next.
in the literature.
Yeah, exactly. This is what you arrive at when you do the analysis. So this is only stage 1 of the analysis. Stage 2 now is to look behind this to say, well, what does this mean? How do we take the metaphysical perspective, and how do we take the scriptural evidence and match the 2 up to arrive at a conclusion using the hermeneutics of Imam Ghazali? Sure. Is that correct, Dr. Shoaib?
That's it. Yeah.
Fine. I'm a bit conscious of time. We want to open the floor to Q&A. Shall we just ask you one more question about, or should just leave it for later? I was going to ask you about, the important, advice should be given to our du'at who are involved, in this field, and what would be your advice be? If you want to just briefly mention it, because many a times we see that our du'at, those who are involved, they actually face quite of a dilemma here on this issue. How do they approach this whole topic, and what should they be discussing or not? What position to take, and so on.
Right. Yeah. So I want to just make sure I restate this again in light of the comments that I'm just seeing in the YouTube chat, that all I have just done at the moment is explain the different positions without kind of immediately jumping to the gun. This is wrong, or that is wrong, or this is right, or that is right. Just understand the positions for what they are. Once you've understood them, then inshallah in the next session, we will have a clear discussion about what is acceptable or not, at least according to my study based on the Ash'ari method. That's all I'm going to say, right, about that particular matter. Point number 2, I want to also make it very clear, right, that when it comes to issues pertaining to science and Islam in general, and this walks into your question, Brother Mansur, is that we have to be careful that the first litmus test for us is not the science. The science could be far-fetched for all I care. For me to assess whether it is compatible or not, my first filter needs to be my theological lens. So if somebody says, let's say talk about multiverses, right? Now, multiverses may be an issue for some people, but in order for me to assess whether it is Islamic allowed or not, I need to go back to my theology. I need to go back to my creed. I need to go back to my creed, right? So when we are talking about science and religious issues, a lot of damage has been done by kind of investigating so much time into the sciences without first addressing, hang on, what am I theologically allowed to believe in or not? And there are 2 questions that you must answer first. The first question that you must ask is, can God do it? So this thing that you're talking about in science, can Allah do it, yes or no? And to do that, you must understand what kind of God we believe in. Does God have a limited capacity or an unlimited capacity? That's the first thing. So can God do evolution? Can God, if He wanted to create us through evolution? Yes, absolutely possible. So that's the first lens. Can God do it? Number 2, Is it scripturally compatible? Yes or no? You have to dive in to the relevant verses, understand the contextual parameters, and then see whether it's possible or not. So these two are the filter tests. That's why for me personally, when people teach me about periodic tables, or when I learn about differential equations, I first have to just check, can God do it? Yes. Does it conflict with scripture? No, khalas, bye-bye. It's accepted. That's it. So I don't make an issue out of every scientific conversation because I disagree with the science. My first thing as a Muslim is, does it work with my theology or not? So what we have ended up doing, particularly with the context of evolution, and I can understand why, I understand the motivations behind this, is that we have invested so much time in debunking the science of evolution or wasting time on this left, right, and center, that we have not actually addressed the real issue, theologically, what is accepted or not. Now, some people have done it. They have resorted to human exceptionalism or creationism based on their theological perceptions. But I believe that with every scientific clash, is that we have to have a very clear understanding of what our theology says. Once your theological filter is clear, whatever science throws at you, it will be clearly understood, right? That's it. And this goes no matter which camp you belong to. Ash'ari, Maturidi, Salafi, Athari, whatever you want to come from, this will make sense. So whatever you want to engage yourself with, at least have your theological filters clear. So my only advice for du'at is, when you have a new idea, let it boil for a while, let it brew. Because automatically the first thing is going to be that we're going to reject it. I mean, this has happened a lot. Happened with the TV, happened with the camera, happened with the printing press, happened with coffee, right, to some degree, right? So a lot of these new technologies and new ideas definitely first go to the gutter as a first response. And then slowly through short appropriation, we begin to see nuances coming forth. That's all I'm saying. So whenever we have an idea like this, I would say, of course, many people do their job. They go to the scholars, they get their best answers, and they make sense of the conversation. But all I'm simply saying is, let the situation brew for a while. Because with brewing comes an understanding of nuances and of possibilities. And once those possibilities are there, then we can kind of understand what are valid options and what are invalid options. So that's the only thing that I would say to your question, Brother Mansur.
Jazakallah. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Brother Hashim, you're on mute.
Hashim, you're muted.
I keep doing that. Yeah, I was just saying that we have the link to join the panel for Q&A now, because I've just realized it's gone over 1.5 hours already. So inshallah, because I mean, may Allah reward Dr. Shoaib. It's quite late where he is now for giving us the time. And alhamdulillah, inshallah, he'll be answering the questions that you guys have been posting on the comments. So if anybody wants to join the panel, regardless of whether you're a Muslim or non-Muslim, please do click the link that is pinned in the comment section and is also in the description of this video.
And please remember to ask questions relevant to the topic. I don't want you to come and ask questions which is totally irrelevant. If you do so, you'll be kindly removed from the stream without any mercy. So we have our first guest already. Let's bring him. MFA, if I'm not mistaken. Welcome to DawahWise live stream. Just tell us your name, where you're from, and what is your question, please?
Yeah, my name is Faisal. I'm calling from Germany right now. I'm studying here. Originally, I'm from Pakistan. Yeah, so usually what this question comes down to is like evolutionists, they will say, okay, evolution is like the explanation for everything, but they contest the idea of Adam and Eve. So they say like evolution disproves Adam and Eve. So like, would you elaborate what's your position like? Because like listening to other Dawah streams, it's like the position is like Adam and Eve are like kind of a miracle. So God can put Adam and Eve in this evolution process, which was going in like already on this earth. So like, what's your position, and what's like the best like the reply to this? Like when they say like evolution disproves Adam and Eve, so that's why it disproves Islam.
Right. So really good question. Really, really good question, mashallah. I'm actually working on a paper that kind of addresses this very concern. So excellent, to the point. I like it. So to address your question, we need to understand a few principles, right? Is science in the business of studying miracles? Yes or no? Can science ever study a miracle?
No, I think.
No. It is beyond its capacity because it presumes that laws of nature carry on, right? So if Allah did disrupt the law of nature, it will not be captured under science because science presumes that those regularities are fixed. With me so far?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, great. Now, if a miracle occurred in the past where Adam and Eve popped into existence, would science ever be able to detect that?
No.
No. Point number 3, right? Point number 3. Adam and Eve are religious principles, right? They're religious propositions. In science, do you ever find a textbook called Adam and Eve that we're going to be discussing about Adam and Eve? Ever in a scientific textbook?
No.
No. From a scientific viewpoint, strictly from a scientific viewpoint, Adam and Eve don't exist. Adam and Eve are religious propositions, not scientific ones. So for those reasons, anyone who claims that scientifically we have negated the possibility of Adam and Eve being created miraculously does not know what they're talking about. Because scientifically, there are no such things as miracles. So you are blind to miraculous creations, which is fine. That's what science can do. It can only work with the presumption of regularity and tell us about laws of nature. Fine, no problem. But we know that from a theological angle, Allah can disrupt those laws of nature, and Allah has informed about those disruptions in the Quran. Can we ever know scientifically that Moses' staff converted into a snake? Can we know that scientifically ever?
No.
No. So can we ever scientifically know if Allah created Adam and Eve through miraculous creations? Ever?
No, I don't think so.
Exactly. Whatever they're saying is bogus. It's a bogus argument. They're trying to step outside the field of science to make that claim, but all they're simply doing is going into metaphysics based on the worldview of naturalism, that nature is all there is. Fundamentally, their argument is nature is all there is, laws of nature are fixed, miracles cannot happen because they've already negated God. That is the worldview they are probably prescribing and they're adopting, and it is from that angle they're probably criticizing you. But our worldview is richer. Our worldview is richer than that. We believe that science gives us a way of explaining things or whatever have you, but science cannot explain miracles. Science cannot even explain and tell us anything that is happening in the past. Allah told us that. But just to make it easier for you, if Allah never mentioned Adam and Eve, would we ever be able to identify Adam and Eve in science? Ever? Ever? Bro?
No, I think
Never. Because we would never have heard of Adam and Eve. The only reason why we know about Adam and Eve is because of Quran Hadith. Because Allah mentioned it. But if Allah never mentioned that, we would have never known about them, ever. You see my point? What our religious principles keep them on a religious scale, what our scientific principles keep them on a scientific scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that actually explained this, but like, can I give you like how they argument, like with
Sure.
how they put their argument? Like they,
Sure.
they go from like, okay, like let's go from species A. They say, okay, we evolve, like species B evolved from species A and C from B, and like
Sure.
when you give like the like excuse me, when you like concede like 3-4 steps in which they say, okay, we evolved from this, and you say yes, and then say, okay, this thing evolved from this, okay, then you say yes, and like you concede this ground. So when they come to like from apes to this Adam, they say, okay, the Adam, like the humans, they evolved from the apes. At that moment, when you say no, right now I don't believe this step. So it's like kind of puts in a position like where it's like, yeah, this is what my question is like. When you concede like everything like before, yeah, okay, I believe like this evolved from this and this evolved from this, and when they come to this from ape to the Adam, and then you say no, I'm gonna believe in this miracle. So like this kind of like puts us in a dodgy situation. Maybe how like I would like you to give the answer.
So I think you're actually looking for how to understand the compatibility of Islam and evolution, and for this particular response, come to the next episode, inshallah. Is that okay?
Okay.
I'd rather because the thing is I don't want to regurgitate myself, and we're going to have a full unpacking there. So I'd explain that there and then, inshallah, if that's okay with you.
Precisely.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for your excellent question.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. Let's bring in
Yeah.
Isma Saeed.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Hi. I was just wondering, how can you say that Adamic exceptionalism is, well, being against that Islamically would be haram? How can you say that when, I mean, the majority of the Muslim tradition, the scholars, the early Sahaba, obviously, they would have found it absolutely absurd that humans aren't exclusively from Adam and Eve, and they have a common ancestry with like a single cell.
Right. So again, I think you're looking for compatibility. I never suggested which ones are valid or invalid at the moment. I never said that. I just simply explained those propositions, right? So that's one thing. However, just to kind of address your concern, Adamic exceptionalism, to make it very clear, says that all human beings alive today, every single one of us, can trace ourselves back to Adam and Eve. There's no human being alive today that has a parent aside from Adam. Everyone must have a lineage tracing back to Adam and Eve. Now, in Adamic exceptions, the idea is there could have been other human beings that were created possibly out of evolution, through which some of Adam's descendants could have created lineages with, right? But they would have been absorbed under Bani Adam. Your question about our previous scholars never entertained them, they never discussed evolution. No one before 1859 discussed evolution. Likewise, no one in our scholars discussed about cryptocurrency, COVID-19. Doesn't mean that we don't have answers for them. So we have to remain true to the past, which is why we have to stick to their methodology, which is what I try to do in my book. But at the same time, not be afraid to answering new questions. And if sometimes they reveal new insights, great. But within the theological parameters of our discussion, which is what I've done. Within the Ash'ari paradigm, this could or could not be a valid proposal, which I will be silent upon until the next session, inshallah. Did that address your question?
Yeah, sort of, but like I think there's a slight difference between something like, obviously, I know they never talked about evolution and stuff like that, but I think with something like dinosaurs, you can easily say they wouldn't have a problem with something like that because there's just nothing mentioned about it. But I think they all would have held like positive, firm belief that human beings don't have like it was a special creation and there wasn't anything even remotely similar to a human being before. So I think because I think the Quran does have quite the narrative implies that it was like an exclusive creation, whereas with dinosaurs, they wouldn't care either way.
Yeah, so I agree with you. So Adamic exception. So what were the opinions of the past? Adam was created miraculously. He was unique. Eve was created miraculously. She was from Adam somehow, and there are two interpretations about this. And all of us have a lineage that can trace back to Adam and Eve. Adamic exceptionalism accepts all three. It just says that there's a possibility, not even an affirmation. It's saying possibility of there being or pre-Adamic human beings. You don't want to call them human beings, that's fine, right? But you have to do tawakkuf on this possibility of there being or pre-Adamic human beings with which intermarriages could have taken place. That's all it's saying. So it's not breaking away from the past in the three main propositions that are textually abundant. None of that is being denied whatsoever. The uniqueness, the creative narrative, the origins, etc. All of that's being suggested as a possibility. You cannot close the possibility using Quran and Hadith that these other entities could have existed. That's all it says. That's all it's saying. All right?
All right. Jazakallah. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallah feek, inshallah. Do come to the next session, and hopefully we'll go through the theological discussions of these four propositions, inshallah. All right?
Inshallah.
I think there's still some sort of misunderstanding about the term human that's used in your chart over there, because many people think that human over there is just Bani Adam. I think that probably needs a reclarification.
So I'm actually working on another book where because of this misconception of human here, we're actually working on a book that kind of goes through all the different ayat and the hadith. I'm working on this with David, and we clearly show what are the possible interpretive frameworks that you can get out of this. So they'll hopefully be coming on in the next 2-3 years, inshallah.
Inshallah, looking forward.
Hello?
So we got Brother Rasul here.
Oh, assalamu alaikum, Brother Rasul.
Oh, you muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Oh, subhanallah. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, Dr. Shoaib Mansur and Brother Hashim and Brother Muhammad, Brother Mansur. Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to ask, hopefully it's on the subject. It is on the subject, but it's sort of different, astaghfirullah. But in terms, Bismillah, the mindset of an evolutionist, and what's the relationship with a materialistic ideology mindset, and how does it affect an individual and society and their outlook on life? Like, will it make them nihilistic? Will it? It's to do with human behavior, etc. Would you be able to answer that question, sir? Sorry.
Yeah. I think that's a very good question, Brother Rasul. You're basically talking about naturalism, right? That if you have a naturalistic worldview, how does that affect your outlook? So naturalism is basically a broad worldview. It's not specific to any scientific theory. So I can be a naturalist and believe that atoms create themselves. Electrons pop themselves in and out of existence. Clouds completely form themselves. This can all be put under a naturalistic framework. But naturalism is completely against theism. Theism believes there's more than just nature in the mechanics of things, right? We believe in natural things as well as supernatural things. Now, evolution, which is a scientific theory, can be easily couched in either of these worldviews. You can have a naturalistic interpretation of evolution. You can also have a theistic interpretation of evolution. You can have a naturalistic interpretation of the periodic table, a chemistry. You can also have a theistic interpretation of chemistry, right? The only difference is, what is the fundamental bedrock of these two worldviews? For naturalism, it's just nature all there is. For theism, it's God, fundamentally. So the idea of evolution being equated to naturalism is false, because evolution in itself does not make the claim of what there is beyond nature. It doesn't do anything more than that. It's a scientific theory. If you want to put it under a naturalistic garb, that is the metaphysical gloss or the philosophical gloss you're adding on top of it. But in of itself, it's strictly a scientific theory. Did that address your concern?
Yes and no, Barakallah Fiqh. But I just wanted to add, like, this is a weird question again, but are evolutionists happy people?
Are evolutionists happy people? So I know Muslim evolutionists and I know non-Muslim evolutionists, and I can give you a range of answers. So I don't have a homogeneous answer for you, but yeah, I don't know how to answer the Aslan to begin with, just because there are people on both sides.
That's a subjective perspective. You need to go ask the people themselves. I mean, I can't speak for other people. Right? We can't speak for other people. But
yeah, subhanallah, sorry.
Humor.
Okay, Barakallah Fiqh, Brother Rasul.
Barakallah Fiqh. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair.
Okay, we got Brother Ahmed here. Sorry, before you all, entertain Brother Ahmed's question. I'm sure it'll be quite entertaining. Can you answer the question that's on the screen, please?
Brother Shoaib, can you comment on William Lane Craig's mytho-historical view of Adamic? So, Brother Dawa dude, I like the name, by the way. I've ordered his book, William Lane Craig's book, and I don't want to make any comments until I've read it. I know what his views are, but I've heard just very simplified views based on YouTube. So just to be of charitable nature, please give me the time until I get the book and read it, and then I'll be able to address that much more carefully, inshallah. Because I don't want to say something that he didn't say.
Absolutely fair. Jazakallah khair. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ahmed.
Tahiyati wa alaikum salam. How are you, Mansur Hashim, Dr. Shoaib? Mansur Hashim, mashallah, you look very hygienic and very clean. I hope nobody paid you to take a bath. Inshallah not. You did it of your own volition. But very interesting conversations you have, brothers. Yeah, they're very illuminating. Anyway, I posted a link in the back chat to Dr. Rana Dajani. I don't know if Dr. Shoaib knows her. She's a Palestinian.
She's a friend.
Do you know her? Okay. She's known to support the idea of evolution. And she's not an alim scholar, but she's a biologist. So I don't know, Dr. Shoaib, if you included in your source material for the next session to answer some of the comments that she has made, because I'm confused about this topic. She talks about how in Quran some ayahs says insan and bashar wa khalaqna insanan akhar. Towards the end, so my question is a small one. Towards the end, you were taking a metaphysical approach or the teleology approach. Is that what you're taking? And
metaphysical. But you said metaphysical.
Okay. Okay, so I mean, I don't know if this is something you can answer now or the next session, but I would love to know. I mean, if someone asked me, "Do I believe in evolution?" What should my answer be as a Muslim?
So
Or is that-
on
yeah.
that, so first of all, Dr. Rana Dajani is in the no exceptions camp. So you know the 4 positions that I put? She's in the last one. She believes that everything can be explained through evolution, including Adam and Eve. This is her position. Okay?
Everything can be. Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So she has the opinion that Adam and Eve must have had parents, right? So that's the position that she's coming from. She's in the no exceptions camp. Okay? So I personally disagree with that position. This is my personal opinion. I disagree with that position. I don't entertain the no exceptions camp. I believe Adam and Eve were created miraculously, but the details of when you were asking which as a Muslim can I accept or not, this will be explained in the next section. All I wanted to do today was just give you the terminology, the lisan, right? That these are the 4 propositions. So from now on, when we talk about what's your position, the 4 things: creationism, human exception, Adamic, and no exception. This should be in your head. That's all I expect.
Okay. I don't want to take too much
Okay.
time, brothers. Shukran. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Always good work, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, we still have a queue of people in the back, so yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well,
Wa alaikum
Assalamu
salam.
alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I had a question to Shoaib, which is like, excellent. When you say like there were another creatures and you cannot call them human, and they were intermarriage with humans, are you saying in other words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he says like, oh insan in the Quran, meaning we all came from Adam alayhi salam, you agree that? So the creatures before the human being or something, you haven't defined what you are saying now, like that insan is not what Allah describes in the Quran, the human beings from Adam alayhi salam. So you're saying the intermarriage with some other beings which Allah has not even called them, human, and you're saying it's a possibility that intermarriage can
Theologically valid.
take place.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you not saying something quite dangerous to your own religion? Like
No. It is
going,
based on. Sorry. Go ahead. Finish your point, Brother Jamal.
yeah, when you accept that and you are saying insan can intermarriage with another being, since you don't want to call them human, where do you get this from?
Right. So as I explained in this presentation, that when we are talking about theology, you need to have clear scriptural proofs, right? I think we both agree on that. Yes, Brother Jamal? Yep.
Yeah.
So now the Quranic definition, which is a theological definition of insan and bashar, are the kids of Adam and Eve. Do we agree with that? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So that is the Quranic definition, right? The Quran, however, makes no. Now this definition of what is insan, which we translate as human beings generally, right, is a narrower definition of human beings in biology. In biology, a human being doesn't mean the kids of Adam and Eve. That's not what you find in a biology textbook. In biology, a human being is an entity that has the same physiological, genetic, behavioral, cultural traits as us. That's all it means, right? So this is a broader definition than this theological definition. Not in an insulting way, just that's what it means. This biological definition is broader than this theological definition. Does the Quran negate the possibility of there being other entities that have similar physiological, genetic features as us? No, it doesn't. That's all it's saying. The Quran neither negates it.
No, but the thing is, you're not just saying only that. You're not saying other creatures have the same appearance or the same DNA almost. If we have maybe like the same DNA with animals, but it doesn't prove.
But you see, you're calling them animals.
Wait. Yep. It doesn't prove in any way, we come from animals or stuff like that, because there's always because they don't believe like a common maker. They just believe like we have a common ancestor. And even if the DNA is 100% proof, they say it's 100%, that's still not proof, because if there's a common creator, it can create people or creatures in the same manner. So it doesn't disapprove anything. But you are saying they don't only exist, but they intermarriage with human beings, which makes them also not from Adam too.
Yeah.
When do you expect them to intermarriage with the human beings when you say this?
So no, I'm saying that from a theological angle, you cannot use Quran Hadith to deny those possibilities. That's what Adamic Exceptionalism states. There is nothing قطعي دلالة وقطعي ثبوت that negates those possibilities. That's it. That's the bottom line.
But you don't have to believe it, right?
Yeah, you don't have to believe it.
It's not about believing it. When you say possibility, and saying like that, there should be you can also say there is a possibility to get intermarriage with animals, and if it works, you can say that. But if it's true, then there's no proof to it.
For all I know, there might have been some corrupt human beings who might have done it. I don't know. We know that bestiality was done, for instance.
Yeah, okay, but did something came out of it? I don't think so, because there is a limit. Like dogs and cats can also not make
This is if you're talking about reproduction, yes. So in biology, you need to have similar physiology and genetics to have reproductive capabilities, right? So these entities could have had them. And we know that for evolution, so I don't know if you believe in evolution or not, even if you didn't, but I can tell you for a fact that there's evidence that human beings, Homo sapiens at least, if that's what you want to understand as insan and bashar, they procreated with Neanderthals. And
where's the proof of this?
Go to any university.
And that they are not human beings.
Sorry? So this is the key question here.
When you say that, they reproduce and Neanderthals and stuff like that, since the evolution, they see Neanderthals as human being predecessors of human beings.
So they were not predecessors, they were coexisting with human beings.
Or coexisting. But they seem they put them in the same group as human beings. Or else they couldn't
No. They put them under the same genus as Homo, not in the same category as human beings.
So they are not Bani Adam, just to clarify.
No. I didn't even say that. say that. No. I'm just simply saying that Homo sapien is under. So you have a category called Homo. Within that, you have several different subspecies, right? Homo sapien, Homo denisova, Homo neanderthalensis, Homo erectus. This is what I'm saying. Yeah. That's all that means, yeah? So
what I was saying is that the Neanderthal are not the Bani Adam that we usually identify in our theology.
Yeah, so because the thing is, in Islam, we don't know when Adam was created. We don't have any clear proof when he was created. Right? There's zero proof. He could have been created 10,000 years ago. He could have been created 100,000 years ago, 200,000. We don't know. It's an open question. Theologically, we have nothing about it whatsoever, right?
You want to prove this with giving the Darwinism some right, okay, you guys are not wrong. Maybe there was intermarriage, so to not disapprove your own religion. Do you mean like that? That's why you are supporting or backing?
No, for me, I want to know what I'll be questioned on the Day of Judgment for. A theological, your aqidah is something that is based on very clear texts and propositions. If there is nothing clear in the Quran Hadith about
wait. You're saying I want on the Day of Judgment what you're gonna be asked. How is this gonna be asked on you on Day of Judgment?
Exactly my point.
In any way. No. This is something you're searching for. Yeah, I don't get it. What's your benefit from this?
So for me, the benefit of writing this book. Have you read the book, by the way, just out of curiosity?
No, I just came in, so
Oh, right.
Listen
Okay.
to you, but yeah, only like
I recommend reading the book if you can before the next session. But in short, I wanted to find out all the possibilities that are within the theological framework of acceptability. That's all I wanted to do. So I believe theologically you can be a creationist. It's jaiz. If you want to be a creationist, there's no problem. But I also believe in other possibilities that I'll be discussing next week, inshallah. That's all I'm saying.
like
So, Brother Jamal, Dr. Shoaib is not saying that all those propositions are correct. He's just saying those are the propositions out there. Okay, he's not taking a stance on them, and he's going to discuss that later on. Does that make sense, brother?
mm,
So
yeah,
he's not
I get
saying
what
they're
he
true.
wants to do.
All of them are true. Okay, because the way you're questioning, I think you're saying that you're implying that Dr. Shoaib is saying all these propositions are true and factual, and they're all from the Quran and Sunnah, which is not the case.
No, yeah, I get that. Since
Okay.
you can never find what he's saying in the Quran and the Sunnah, since he's just making assumption. But I'm asking him, what kind of proof does he have, like that those creatures, or how he wants to call them, have intermarriage with human beings? Because we as Muslims, evolution, if Allah wanted, we all came from like one cell. It started from one cell, and we came from one cell to animals and to this. But we don't believe that, because we believe the Quran, and Allah says He created the human beings with His own hands. So that's why we take this
We are not
stance.
denying that,
We are
brother.
Muslims.
So Dr. Shoaib is not denying that. He's just showing you, in the people who study evolution, what other propositions are there. And inshallah, in the next session, we are going to tackle head on the exact question which you're asking from the perspective of Islam, inshallah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to be clear, Brother Jamal. When did you come in this live stream?
Not long, like 15 minutes, but
Okay. Right. So I recommend just going through the whole video again, and then inshallah we'll have a chat next week. Does that sound okay?
okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Thank you, Brother Jamal.
Good. Brother
I think we went with
Jawad.
the last one.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you for having this discussion. And my question is in regards to just one statement. You said that when one of the counter arguments to the possibility of another kind of similar species that could exist to human being and have intermarriage is that Bani Adam, it means sons of Adam, but those human beings or those similar human beings could marry with Adam, and they could be observed within the Adam species, so they could be called human beings. So one of the questions I had was, have you maybe consulted with an Arabic linguist, or in the classical definition, or with a scholar regarding this matter, that could son of Adam or Bani Adam or insan could another species that were kind of dissolved into human beings could be included in this definition, and therefore we could say this is a possibility?
So yes is the answer to your question. David Solomon Jalal is a theologian from Darul Uloom in South Africa. Sheikh Yasir Qadi is open to Adamic Exceptionalism. He doesn't adopt it, but he's open to it. He believes it to be a theological possibility. So yes is the answer to your question. And bear in mind that when we're talking about relationships in the Quran, when it comes to Adam, we're talking about lineages, right? So whatever is produced from a participant of Bani Adam will become absorbed if they intermarried. It will become part of Bani Adam. So there won't be a problem whatsoever there.
Okay, I see. Okay, Jazakallah for answering that question.
So Brother Jawad, the question that you have asked, this along with the others, inshallah, they will be addressed in another upcoming book in more detail, because this book is mostly to do with philosophical and metaphysics, with some hermeneutic scriptural stuff. But inshallah, the whole scriptural angle will be discussed in full-fledged detail in a book coming out in the next 2 years, inshallah. But good question.
All right, great. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
So just to repeat again, the book link is available in the description. Please click it. It's downloadable for free. As Brother Shoaib mentioned, some very generous individual actually paid for it to be open access. So please take advantage of it, share it, and read it. I highly recommend you read it. It's very good reading, and it will. We cannot do justice to what was essentially 3 years of research that Dr. Shoaib went through to write this book. Okay, so an hour discussion on 3 years of research by no means does justice to the nuances and the intricacies of the arguments that are presented in the book. So please be respectful and go read the book first before jumping to conclusions, because I think just in general, this is one of the things we suffer from as a community. We hear one or two words about something and we jump to a conclusion very quickly, and that's dangerous, guys. Okay, don't do that. Okay, if you don't understand it, read it. If you can't read it or won't read it, then go to a scholar that has read it and listen to them, and speak to them, or reach out to Dr. Shoaib. We'll give you some contact details later. It's available on his academia page as well. Alhamdulillah, he's very, very generous with his time, even though he's so busy, because we want to make sure that this issue that causes many of our brothers and sisters to leave Islam because they lack the understanding should not be an issue moving forward. This is not something that intellectually we can justify moving forward, to say I left because of evolution. This is a nonsensical argument to use, really, in my opinion.
Yeah. Right.
Can I just answer one good question that is in the comments, if possible?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's by Sohaib Alvi. What about biological angle? Why are you just accepting the theory when there are major holes in it? Why should we not aim at internal critique? So I want to address this question before I head off, right? So my approach has always been, make your theology science proof. So even if it has holes in it, right? I don't believe it has holes in it, right? I believe it only has holes in the mechanical parts. But as I said, fine, that's a point of disagreement there. Let's just say we took it on, full on. Take it for what it is. How far can you embrace it? Because for me, what matters not is the scientific nitty-gritty details at the end of the day. I don't care what the new mechanics are going to be. I don't care about chromosome 2. I don't care about any of those details. I take the main propositions, evaluate it with a theological lens, and see where it takes me. If it's acceptable, great. If it's unacceptable, I'll reject it. Simple as that. Within nuances, of course. So my perspective has always been not to waste time on the science. Allah did not create me to waste my time on scientific theories. Allah created me to worship Him, and that's why my first point of contact and my first point of understanding is the theological lens. So that's why I don't particularly go further into the details of the science. You can do that. There are plenty of courses that do that. Feel free to do an undergraduate degree, an MSc, whatever have you. But for me, that is not my focus. My focus is first and foremost a theological one. So I hope that addressed your concerns as well.
We have one guest waiting. Let's bring to the stream.
There was a question somebody asked earlier. I don't know if you want to take that. It was about
which one?
Something to do with the height of Adam and Yajuj Majuj being. Could it be possibly that they are the children of Adam?
Right. So so there's two questions here: the height of Adam, and then the Yajuj Majuj. About Yajuj Majuj, I don't know because I haven't looked into that yet. So I will not address that concern at the moment. Maybe inshallah, this actually you give me an idea to maybe incorporate this in my book. But I'll definitely look into that. I don't know about Yajuj Majuj to be able to give you a sufficient answer. About the height of Adam, so I recommend if you search on YouTube, type in Mufti Muntasir Shoaib, so my name and Mufti Muntasir. It's a 2-hour lecture on that hadith. 2-hour lecture about the different meanings of the hadith, the different sanad of the hadith, everything you want, full exhaustive understanding is there. So that should be enough for you to kind of go back to, inshallah.
Okay, barakallahu fik. Brother Bilal, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Bilal.
Oops, we lost him. Let's wait for him. So while we are waiting for him, there was another question I picked up earlier. Let me show it to you. So are there pre-Adamic hominids which are anatomically indistinguishable from Adamic humans? Did they mate at some point? I would like Dr. Malik to answer this question.
So from a theological angle, that's the thing, we don't know. That was the reason why I said tawaqquf. So when I introduced Adamic Exceptionalism, I stated very clearly that one, tawakkuf is the idea that if there's nothing clear, if scripture mentions nothing, you cannot turn it into a religious issue. Quran does not mention anything about what existed alongside Adam and Eve. There could have been, there could not have been co or pre-Adamic human beings. Wallahu alam, I don't know. We do tawakkuf on the issue. Could they have intermarried? Again, wallahu alam, I don't know. What is very clear is that in Adamic Exceptionalism, it believes that Adam and Eve were the first, were created miraculously. All of us can trace ourselves back to them. Yani we have a nasab that goes back to Adam and Eve. We have a lineage that goes back to Adam and Eve. But it is open on the question of these co-Adamic entities and whether they intermarried. If they did, whatever was produced children-wise would immediately be absorbed in Bani Adam. That's it. Simple as that. But no human being alive today is from a non-Adamic origin. It must be that they have an origin back to Adam and Eve, but they also have potentially an origin that goes back to the origins of life. The Quran neither negates nor affirms that possibility. That's all it says.
Okay, Barakallah Fiqh. I think we have exceeded the time limit already. So shall we call it a day today or a night at your end?
Yeah. I'm okay. I'm good to go. If there are any more people, I'm more than happy to take.
So I just wanted to post Dr. Malik's email address, which he said is okay to share, inshallah. So if anybody got questions, please feel free to email Dr. Shoaib, inshallah. And I'm sure he'll be responding to that. Jazakallah.
When is the next session, Brother Hashim? Should we just remind everybody?
Yeah, so the next session, inshallah, we plan to have next Wednesday at the same time at 8 p.m. UK time. So yeah, if you guys got any questions, please prepare them, keep them ready. Do try to read the book that is posted in the description of this video. The PDF book is free of charge. So try to read that, because I saw a lot of comments there. And most of these comments are from people who haven't read the book. Most of the comments are from people who haven't understood this particular topic. I used to be in that place once, and I used to actually completely write off people who even mention evolution.
So brother Hashim, look at the comment by Turkish Salafi. Accept Islam or accept evolution. Stop uttering nonsense.
Yeah, we get a lot of that. Yeah. So I mean, look, we can't blame them if they haven't read the literature or this particular topic. It's like me saying that I understand like microbiology when I have no clue about it, and then trying to criticize a professor in that particular field. It's illogical. Let's put it that way. So inshallah, I mean, try to read up the book, try to watch the videos that mashallah Dr. Shoaib has on this particular topic. I think he's got quite a few online already. So inshallah, and save up some of the questions you have for the next session, next Wednesday, inshallah.
And if you share our Dawah's email, if you have some questions up front, please just email them to us.
Yes,
we'll
please.
Be happy to take them ahead of the call. And that way we can sort of also structure the program to address some of those questions as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
Just to clarify to our audience who think they're a bit disappointed, I mean, from the very outset, we said this is going to be a two-part program. In the first part, we're laying down the foundations, the principles, what people understand by evolution, what are the objections, what exactly is it? Because we need to understand the situation, the reality first, before you then give your opinion about it, whether it's acceptable or not, it's compatible or not. So in the second session, inshallah, we will go to the real science, if you wish, as much as you need, where we will discuss all of those objections in detail, just to clarify from that perspective. Because today is just laying down foundation, because we can't give you, in this 1 hour or so, in this brief explanation of it, every nuances and details. So next session, join us, and you'll have all these answers, inshallah. Don't assume that we've taken a particular stance. I mean, Dr. Shoaib was showing you the propositions. It doesn't mean that he's endorsing any or one or all of them. These are what the possibilities that exist. I mean, if you remember the chart that he showed, because when it comes to Islam and evolution, these are all the possible scenarios as a Muslim you can take. The question remains is which one is the most ideal for a Muslim to take. can it be just one or two, or a combination of them, which has no problems? And that is, inshallah, what we're going to focus in detail in the next show. Is that right, Dr. Shoaib?
Yeah. I mean, like, I just wanted to say, for those people who are new or from different mindsets, that's fine. You can disagree with me. I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. You can even write a refutation about this book, no problem. I'm happy about that, right? That's not a problem for me. I just would like you to please just listen to the next lesson, session. I think in teaching mode, lesson, right? So try and have a crack at the book. If anything, just read chapter 4, if you can. Just read chapter 4 if you can. That should be enough for trying to kind of make sense of the conversation. And in the next session, all I'm going to do is just explain from my analysis using the Ghazalian framework or the Ash'ari framework. I am going to simply say what isn't possible. That's all I'm saying, right? And I'll say this at the outset. There is more than one understanding. There's more than one answer here. It's not just one answer. So just keep an eye out for the next session, inshallah. Feel free to email me. And yeah, again, forgive me if I've offended you, because some of you have been triggered, I feel. That's not my intention in any shape or form. I understand this is a sensitive conversation. Trust me, I've been in a lot of circles where this has blown up in my face, but I still go at it. So please don't feel offended. I'm not trying to, get you to think in a particular shoebox or, put you into a particular pigeonhole. This is just me trying to share my ideas here. And, may Allah forgive me for anything wrong that I've said, and may Allah accept anything good that has come out of this conversation, inshallah.
So, do you want to mention your course that you're running as well, that's coming out?
Yeah, so for those of you who are interested in really kind of taking a deep dive into Islam and evolution, so I'm running a course on Islam and evolution with al-Balagh Academy and the Islamic Seminary of America together in conjunction. And we had this course last year, which was based on UK timings, 5 to 7 p.m. UK time on Saturdays. But now it's going to be based on US timing, so 5 to 7 p.m. Chicago times on Saturdays. This course will start in January 8th of January, and the deadline for filing in your application is the 18th of December, because there's a couple of things that we want to do, inshallah, right? So, but yeah, those details can be found online. So if you just type in Islam and Evolution al-Balagh, you'll find the website, and there we go through the 3 different schools: the Ash'ari school, the Maturidi school, and the Salafi/Athari school. So you'll have kind of a taste of all 3 perspectives there, inshallah, right? So if you want to kind of take a deep dive, feel free to go in there, and hopefully that will possibly allay some concerns, inshallah. I don't know. Yeah. And
I also want to just mention that even though Dr. Shoaib was very clear about his Ash'ari views and about Imam Ghazali and so on. So if there are any brothers out there or any sisters out there who want to give the Athari view or any other creedal view that you have, please bring forth, and then we can discuss them, inshallah.
Yeah. I personally want to see somebody write the Athari/Salafi response to evolution. That for me would be an exciting one.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakallah khairan. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, brothers.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Until next Wednesday.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.